I just want to interject here and add a trigger warning. We are going to be talking about mental health and suicide in a maximum security prison. This might not be the right episode for you, and that is okay. Just wanted to give you the little chance to stop here.
Now, during my era there, starting in the 1980s, they didn't do any major surgeries or anything really major medical other than like stitches, something like that. I don't even think they treated broken bones in there. They take the guys out of there.
Yeah.
And go to Silver Cross, the old one, back in those days, not the New Lenox one. And for really serious stuff, we take guys to the U of I hospital up on off of Damon in the city. And so upstairs, the second floor, is where the hospital wards were. Now, back in when the place was first built and into the early 20th century, those were like wide open, huge wards. But of course, they had a lot of sickness back in those days. There was TB, influenza in 1918. The prison used to have its own morgue.
Yes.
Kind of where that gym building is now.
Yes.
And it was a whole other thing back in those days, you know. Now, during my time, the wards were like, I think, 4 to 6 beds. And there was 2 wards, maybe 3. A, B, and C, 4 to 6 beds in each one, and they were more for like recovery for guys who would come back from having surgeries or something like that. There was an isolation room, you know, in case somebody had something really catchy, all right? They were really wary of things like mumps, you know, anything, it's all male population, you know, when an adult gets mumps, it can be real serious. Yeah. So they were really wary about anything really contagious, and they had an isolation room. They also had quiet rooms up there, also known as strip cells. That's where we'd put a guy in there, you know, we'd take everything from him. He'd be in there naked.
Is that the rounded edge rooms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, we put him in there naked. If he's suicidal, he couldn't even have a sheet or a blanket. And sometimes during the real dog days of summer, we'd have guys, you know, say to me what, you know, the magic word, suicidal. I'm suicidal. Because they know, see, there's air conditioning up in there.
Oh.
Okay.
And you don't even have to wear clothes.
Yeah. So, you know, sometimes they go up there just to chill out, literally, you know.
Because it wasn't air conditioned.
Because you know what, guy tells me he's suicidal, I report it.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, we've had guys knock themselves off in there.
Yeah.
You know, and so anyway, never forget this one guy. He's in there. He's in the strip cell. And as you said, there's nothing in there, and it's all rounded edges, all molded, everything's molded and everything, you know. So he decided that cell needed a makeover. So he used his own shit, and he smeared it all over the walls and on the inside of the door. And then he tells the guard up there he wanted to see me. This is when I was a counselor. So I go up there, and he had smeared shit on the inside of the viewing panel on the door. So I knock on the door, and let me tell you, it didn't smell very good over there. So he's like, I knock on the door, he's like, who is it? Okay. I said, hey, it's Mike. He goes, Mr. Johnson. And I'm standing there, here's the viewing panel with the shit on it, and I see this hand go like this, like the heel of his hand, and he wipes the shit off, and he goes, sticks his face, so, you can see me now. He goes, hey, how you doing? I said, you said you wanted to see me?
I'm good, how are you?
He goes, the classic, yeah, I want a phone call. Okay, well, I can't approve a phone call. I said, look, I'll tell the psychologist. I said, that's all I can do for that. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, thanks, man. And I said, in the meantime, I said, I'm going to have them bring a bucket of hot water, rags, and you're going to clean this shit up, literally. You know? He goes, yeah, I know. And I said, but I got to tell you, I like how you use the corn for texture.
Ew.
Yeah, well,
Was there a drain in there?
I think there was, yeah, because,
Okay.
you know, that could all be hosed out.
Okay.
But as far as I remember. But yeah, that was,
I don't
and then of
remember.
course, you know, those guys, you had to check on them every like 5 minutes or something. We had a log when I was a guard. You constantly walked.
And
And there was more than one quiet room. There was like a little,
Yeah, there's a little
there was
section.
like 3 there. Yeah.
Nowadays, you can't even regularly check. It has to be within 15 minutes or whatever, but it
Yeah.
has to be irregular intervals because you can't let somebody plan. But it's going to be exactly 15 minutes.
All right. So I was counselor for mental health in the mid 90s before I transferred to the Illinois Youth Center. And I, amongst my other duties, I had to check on the sexually vulnerable and the sexual predators, okay, who were part of the mental health caseload. So every morning, first thing, I had to go physically go see them and make sure they were in the right cells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because even though a guy may have been deemed a sexually vulnerable person, that didn't keep him from like locking up in another cell and turning a trick or something, you know, and for pay. But so yeah, that's what I do. I'd walk around, and you know, it wasn't like based on. It was like based on like prison, their behavior in prison. You know, I mean, to an extent, maybe on the outside, but there were guys in the prison that were predatory. You know, as far as other guys and wanting to have sex and stuff. And then of course you had guys that were vulnerable. Some were very. Some of them were, it was just small stature and they were just targets. And then some, of course, were, acted effeminate.
It's interesting. So now there's PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act.
Oh,
So to address all of this is a thing
Yeah.
now. And those are some of the questions, though. So even as people are, on intake into, jail or prison, they're asking, so some of them are just like objective things that you observe as the filler out of the form. Are they of small stature? So it's funny that you say that. That's like literally what the questions are. Are they aggressive, stature and nature? So that's interesting based on all of that terribleness that happened. That's really focused on now.
And, one time I caught a guy in the wrong cell, and there was already 2 guys in the cell. And he was hiding in the back.
I think we talked about it.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, it happened, And then I also had, I thought I wrote it down. Oh, yeah, we talked about suicidal. If a guy says, I'm feeling suicidal, I always, right away I reported it. I'm not taking any chances with anything like that. But this one time, I had a guy tell me, I'm feeling homicidal.
Oh.
He's locked up in North Sig at the time. And he's in there by himself.
Okay.
I said, that's okay. You can feel homicidal in there because, he has no contact with anybody.
What are you going to do in
unless
here?
he's cuffed up and they take him to the shower or the yard or something. And, of course, I still reported it.
Yeah.
The psychologist and when I had the mental health caseload, I reported directly to the psychologist. I was the counselor for mental health for, I think, about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting, to say the least.
No, now you get to, it's interesting stories even without being part of the exposed so directly to the mental health population, but now specifically.
And then there was one guy, I remember he hung himself, and I had just talked to him, that afternoon, and no indication at all. And they kind of believed that he may have been doing, like, for attention, and something went wrong.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like he now how can you prove all that? I don't know. But that's what I was kind of told. That because, and of course, if they say that if somebody's going to do something to themselves, they usually won't say anything about it if they're really intent on doing it. Whereas on the other hand, if they talk about it, then they usually don't. Now, but you really don't know.
No, you don't know because sometimes they are telling you to.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd always report everything. But in this particular case, nothing. Huh. I mean, and I come in the next day and he was dead. He had hung himself, and of course, it's more like a self-strangulation. It's not like there's nothing to tie it to.
But still,
so they do it
cell.
like on the top of the bunk, and then
the leaning. That's wild.
Yeah. Sometimes they put shampoo lotion on the floor and they're barefoot,
Oh.
and then they can't get their footing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so basically, that was it with mental health. I mean, we would have guys that were not like have serious mental health issues. We'd have guys, not saying this isn't serious, but we had guys that were like bipolar, some schizophrenia, but not like to the point where, it was just like way out of control. For those kind of guys, there was Menard Psychiatric down in Menard and Dixon Special Treatment Unit in Dixon. And guys that were like really far gone, they were on Thorazine.
Mm-hmm.
And, the nickname was Thorazine
Shuffle.
Cowboys.
Oh, I was going to say
Thorazine Cowboys. And then just like really bad disciplinary guys, not necessarily in mental health, but in general, they used to call them circuit riders because they kept shipping them all over because no matter where they went, they were like a real pain.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where the counselors, some of them started writing, reason for transfer. They'd write circuit rider, and then it came down the pike. Don't be putting circuit rider. Don't be doing that. They want the whole thing spelled out. They don't put circuit rider.
Just because.
So you had to go and itemize all that stuff. But I always thought that I never put circuit rider.
That's cheeky. That's somebody that was real frustrated with their job that day. They were over it. They were just like, just go.
Yeah, so there were circuit riders and Thorazine Cowboys.
Well, and then that's somebody that's going to be in prison probably for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just in the system. Oh, man. Okay, well, that's a good episode.
Yeah. And we had a drum solo.
Yeah, in the middle. Anyway, thank you for coming to this week's episode of the Obscurity Makes Obscurity with Kara Phillip and most importantly, Mike Johnson. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.